I have to be careful that I have nothing in my nose because I have very large nostrils, so if I have like a booger dangling in there, you would definitely see it. And I'm kind of delirious right now. So why am I filming a video, you may ask? Well, I don't rightly know. You know, back in the Victorian days, back during the Industrial Revolution, when they used to employ children in their factories, so when that child loses a finger or an arm, is he going to take the day off? I don't think so. I think they just kind of bandage up his little arm, and the next day he's back at work. So right now my throat is covered in very thick, very meaty mucus, and that sounds really disgusting. But on the plus side, I think it makes me sound kind of sexy. You know, like that raspy chain smoker voice. So if illness is what I have to go through to be more attractive, maybe it's worth it. Of course, the Victorians, the topic of this video, would definitely agree with me because beauty is pain. And let me tell you, they put themselves through a lot of pain. Some of them would even die to be more beautiful. My name is Teresa, and this is Toxic Victorian Beauty Standards. I am a connoisseur of the Victorian age. Can one be called a Victorianologist? If so, I am that. Anytime there's a movie, TV series, book, I'm there. I am just very fascinated by the Victorians, the Victorian age. Everybody was very prudish, everybody was very buttoned up. Behind closed doors, I think they were closet freaks. They did very weird things. They did very deadly things. England at the time and also elsewhere in the Americas, they were in the thick, in the peak, in the zenith of the Industrial Revolution. So technology and modernity was progressing at lightning speed. We have coal-burning steam engines. People were traveling by train, whereas just a few years ago, people were traveling by horse and carriages. There were factories all over England, smokestacks. Jack the Ripper was doing his thing. It's gritty, it's buttoned up, but at the same time, you can tell that like these people, they were very repressed, and when you are repressed, then some freaky things will start to happen. They were obsessed with death because death was a commonplace occurrence for them. They were living basically elbow to elbow with death. With the advent of new technologies brought upon by the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, they were also introducing in their lives new ways to die, new household items that could poison them, new machines that could maim you, new modes of transportation that could also go awry. They had modern ambitions for what they want to create and accomplish in their everyday lives, but unfortunately they lived at a time where like the technology was not there yet, and they just did not know that the stuff that they create while making their lives easier could also kill them. So they were writing checks their bodies can't cash. If I were a time traveler, I would like to go back to Victorian England. It doesn't sound very safe for an Asian female. I feel like I just pop up on the street and somebody will try to colonize me, sweep me off to Chinatown or something, which was probably not in the good part of town. It would probably be like near Whitechapel, and then I would have to deal with Jack the Ripper. I could take him. Ordinarily, I see all these Victorian photos, these solemn, creepy looking people, most of whom are not hot, but there is like a segment of Victorian photos of people who were hot. I would love to sell them some opium. I think I would have a whole operation ahead of me if I lived in Victorian England. I would definitely have an opium den, and we will chase that dragon together. I'm gonna look back at this footage and wonder what the hell am I rambling about. During the Victorian age, Harper's Bazaar published what is essentially a beauty advice column, the Ugly Girl Papers. Looking like you have tuberculosis was considered beautiful at that time. Tuberculosis chic, corpse chic, very pale translucent skin where you can see the blue of your veins, you know, blue blood. You would have rosy cheeks. I don't know what rosy cheeks have to do with having tuberculosis. I would assume that if you have tuberculosis, your cheeks would be very gaunt and hollowed out. The gaunt face, like this. You went through that buccal fat removal and you would not have any color on your cheeks, but whatever. You have rosy cheeks and then you have rosy red lips, blood-stained lips. You're frail looking, you're thin, you're an English rose. Your eyes are dewy, your pupils are dilated black, and your eyes are dewy and misty. So that was the beauty standard we were trying to achieve. I find it interesting that not just in Victorian England, but just across all cultures, having pale skins, that pale skin pedestal. I see it most prominently in East Asian beauty trends, and this is a little bit of a side. I did touch off on East Asian beauty standards in this video. Pedestal of having pale skin was considered beautiful, and that is achieved by, you know, the visor covering up your entire body when you're out in the sun. But recently, I've noticed that there are very beautiful East Asian girls, pale, very pale, but they're not covered up. They're not wearing visors and they're not covering up from head to toe like a beekeeper. They're out there, they're wearing like the little shorts, tank tops, but they're so pale. Are they just genetically pale, or are they bleaching? Are they doing the skin bleach? Because they're out there in the full sun. When I go out in the full sun, I tan. It may not seem like it with all these lights, but I have a tan, okay? I have a sock tan, a farmer's tan, sports bra tan. But when I look at these girls, they don't tan. But at the same time, they're not keeping themselves pale by covering up. So if you're a very pale and beautiful East Asian girl, please let me know why you're so pale. Hope it's not like racially offensive or anything, because, you know, I'm Asian, I want to know. So in order to achieve this tuberculosis chic trend, but also appear natural while doing it, you have to put your face and your body through a variety of unnatural preparations. We have chemical peels right now. You don't like the pallor of your skin. You got some blemishes. Terragaxum. My one rule of pronunciation is that, like, most of the time I don't know how to pronounce anything, so I just kind of mumble it, like terragaxum. Put it on your face and your skin turns into like this giant blister that you then strip off. Bam, soft as a baby's bottom. In order to keep that fresh face, Mrs. Powers advises that you coat your face with opium overnight, followed by a brisk wash of ammonia in the morning. Obviously, you know where to get that opium. If I was living back then and running my establishment in Chinatown by way of Whitechapel, you'd probably get it from me. So they would wash their face with ammonia, which has been rumored to help stimulate hair growth. At the same time, ammonia was used for unwanted hair. You use it to try to grow hair, but you also use it to try to lose hair. The logic behind this is that there is no logic. In order to get that near-death look, that misty-eyed, dilated pupil look, women would resort to dropping citrus juice in their eyes. Next time you stab into a slice of grapefruit, instead of trying to avoid the pulp that would inevitably get in your eye, you want to aim for your eye. But unfortunately, citric acid doesn't last long. Eventually, your eyes will heal. But if you lived in the Victorian age, that's not what you want. You don't want to heal. You want to really irritate your eyes. So what they would do is they would resort to belladonna drops. Belladonna is a deadly nightshade, and this is like an age-old remedy from the Italian Renaissance days. It would dilate your pupils, it would give you that dewy-eyed, consumptive look, and with an increased dosage over time, it could lead to blindness. Sometimes when I see steampunk cosplayers, and they would always have these tiny little Victorian sunglasses, that's probably because a lot of Victorian women were near blind because they blinded themselves. In order to get that pale complexion, that coveted white skin, they would resort not only to an ammonia face wash or an opium overnight salve, they would resort to arsenic. Everybody knows arsenic is a poison, and they knew it was poisonous as well. Women who were fed up with their husbands, they would just poison their food with arsenic. They knew that it was poisonous when you eat it in large quantities and over time, large doses over time. But if you put it on your skin, they didn't know that it was absorbed through the skin, but it did make you whiter. Sears Roebuck also sold Dr. Rose's arsenic complexion wafers. They're little white chalky wafers which you would nibble on, and that was supposed to make you paler. And it was advertised to be perfectly harmless. Knowing that it was poisonous, they also ingested it too. you. Beauty is pain, and a little bit of death. So I think in consuming these arsenic wafers, they knew that it was poisonous, but they were trying to build a tolerance in their body so that they can consume more arsenic and therefore make themselves paler. And if it did cause vitiligo, if you start seeing huge portions of your skin turning white, maybe the Victorians are thinking, wow, it's working, and therefore I need to consume more arsenic so that that condition can just sweep through my entire body. Arsenic was ever present in the Victorians' daily lives. In addition to being in beauty products, in makeup, in arsenic wafers that Victorian women willingly consumed, it was also in food coloring, medicines, plant fertilizers, baby carriages. It was especially prominent in wallpaper. So the Victorians love ornate wallpaper. They especially love a very green, kind of toxic looking wallpaper. It was a very vivid shade of green created by Swedish chemist Carl Wilhelm Scheele. It was called Scheele's green, and the green color came from copper arsenite, which is a form of arsenic and a byproduct of copper. Copper was cherished by the way that it patinas into a beautiful green color, but it was also very toxic. So William Morris, whose name you probably heard of, associated with wallpaper, very famous wallpaper. When you see these apartment tours or these architectural digest tours, and then designers would always go for an elaborate, ornate William Morris wall. So Morris, a designer and artist, was also the heir to the world's largest copper mine, which produced arsenic dust due to mining activities. So in mining this copper, created fumes, mushroom clouds of arsenic dust caused many of his miners to die of lung disease. Morris's famous phrase about doctors who treated their miners was that they were bitten by witch fever, insinuating that the doctors were quacked when they diagnosed arsenic poisoning. In a lot of wallpaper factories, workers became very sick because when they were working with block papers or papers with small fiber particles that stick to the surface, they would dye these tiny pieces of wool or cotton in the green arsenic dye and inhale it into their lungs. So I just assume every day people were just dropping dead in the Victorian times. Back then, they're like, oh yeah, this product is probably poisonous and we have evidence. Somebody has poisoned their husband with arsenic, so don't eat it. But if you eat just a little of it, it's not going to harm you, so they just went ahead and ate it. In the larger scheme of things, you're just dying slowly by arsenic poisoning yourself in the name of beauty. Whereas like if you walk outside, you could be struck dead by a horse. The horse sees you and he goes, "Arr!" Kicks you in the face, and then you're dead. Or you walk outside and there is a giant manhole, you fall in the hole, then you die. Or it's Christmas time in Victorian England and you bring a live Christmas tree into your home. It's a little dry. You light up the tree with actual candles and the tree catches fire because the needles are dry, and then you have these heavy Victorian drapes and they catch fire, and you're wearing this bustle with a corset and your dress catches fire, and then the whole house is in flames, and then you're all dead. You're a poor, unfortunate street urchin who's working in a textile factory. Then you get your little hands caught up in the looming machine and you lose an arm, and now you have no arm. You're walking around like this because your boss is an evil industrialist. He's not going to give you the day off. You either bandage your stump up and get back to work, or you're kicked out on the street and you have to like beg for gruel. If you work at the factory, now you have to like weave with one arm. See, you have no arm and then you have to weave with one arm, and then and now you have no arms, and now you're going around like with no arms like this. Please sir, may I have some more? But you don't have any arms, so how are they gonna give you change? So you have to take the money in your mouth. Your mother, and you have a baby, and then the doctor comes in with his like forceps or something, and they like yank the baby out of your womb. He touches you down there with his dirty fingers, and then you catch some kind of infection and die. You're some immigrant from Ireland and you're just trying to make ends meet by selling your wares on the street. Your wares being your body. Jack the Ripper comes up behind you and starts and then now you're dead. If you were a Victorian, you probably have a 90% chance of just catching on fire. There was great city fires that razed entire blocks, but in Boston in 1919, not the Victorian age, but close to the Victorian age, a giant tsunami of molasses killed a bunch of people. Molasses burns. That's basically like lava, like liquid hot magma, but sweet. In the scheme of things, dying slowly by poisoning yourself with arsenic and then blinding yourself with belladonna in the name of beauty. It sounds stupid, but it doesn't sound too bad. It's not going to take you out like that. something else will get you. Like a horse will kick you. I read that a lot of women, by the way, if they hadn't contracted tuberculosis, they would go out of their way to go to tuberculosis sanitariums, get the patients to cough on them so they could get tuberculosis in order to look tuberculosis chic. In Moulin Rouge, Satine, played by Nicole Kidman, she had tuberculosis and she was able to sing perfectly well, even though she was hacking up a lung. I have a cough now, so you know, like putting 2 and 2 together. I've always wondered how one summons up the lung power to sing such ballads when one is dying. Like, my deepest confession is that I've always wanted to sing a very beautiful song as I lay dying in a very tragically romantic way. Subscribe to my channel, press all the buttons. Although we may be parted for a week or 2, I will love you until my dying days. I'm writing checks my body can't cash.